Why did the patches not work? If it's giving him the same, unless the patches can't possibly give what 3 cans a day is giving him.
Yeah.
Is that the god awful stuff that makes you look like this? Basically, she has a husband. He's spending $1,000 a month on at the convenience store, the majority of it tobacco.
How long has this been going on for?
It's been going on for a few years. It has gotten worse, though, within the last year or so.
Is he using more chewing tobacco? What do you think the problem is there?
Definitely more chewing tobacco. He goes through maybe 2 to 3 cans a day, and that can be pretty pricey.
Pretty pricey? There's your retirement.
And it hurts us financially, as you could probably imagine.
I'm over here taking notes. If you've seen my channel before, I write things down as I think of them. Just like I was saying, you want to know your financial security, your financial future, how you're going to be. Look at who your partner is. And the hard part is you can't always determine that at the time you marry. Situations change. Even your priorities change. You may have been with someone at one point, you were both very carefree and living life up, and then someone goes, you know what, I think we need, we're getting older, I think we need to start, changing our financial priorities, and the other person's not ready to make that change with you. So, you can marry somebody thinking one way financially, and you're both in the same lane, and then over time those lanes start to split. But it'll be interesting to know just how long they've been married and also how old they are. But I will tell you this right now. Being married to someone who's going to spend $1,000 a month. I mean, for some people, folks, especially those who are making, maybe closer to the minimum wage, that's a half month's worth of earnings. And for some people in really desperate straits, okay, that are living on the poverty, that's a month's worth of wages. Right?
Assume you've had conversations with them about this. How do those go?
Yes, they don't go very well. It usually starts an argument.
It's always going to start an argument because especially nicotine. I was in a past relationship. I won't say which one. I've been in a few, not many relationships. I've been in a few relationships, obviously by 56. So I won't say which one. But in one of my past relationships, hey, you know what? At least if you're one of my exes, I keep your secrets. Okay, I will discuss things, but I will never point out who you are. All right, and I'm talking from the ages of 20 to 50. Okay, because my thought is I'm happy to share my experiences, but I want to keep their lives, give some respectability, unlike some of those people that you see on TikTok that go screaming out and he's the man. Okay, all right, back on track. Okay, so one of my past relationships, he was a smoker. Okay, I've dated a couple of different smokers. For me, never again. All right. And they couldn't smoke inside because of my allergies and stuff. But one of the relationships that I had where the person was a smoker, when they tried to get off of smoking, their attitudes took such a dive. It was so difficult to be around them. I actually told them they needed to get back onto smoking because otherwise it was going to kill the relationship. It was that drastic. It was that bad. They just became mean, argumentative, crabby, snappy. Every superlative you can think of dealing with bad attitude and behavior. So, of course, my experience, of course, it's going to lead to an argument. But a lot of that is fueled by the addiction and the mental and physical. It's just like a withdrawal, okay, if they don't have it. And I'm telling you, never again. I would not date a smoker again. Absolutely not. Couple has been enough.
He has tried to quit multiple times through the last several years. We've done medical. We've spoken to doctors. He's been put on prescriptions. He's tried the patches, everything. He's tried quitting cold turkey, and
cold turkey rarely works. But I know for some people, cold turkey has worked, but I think in general, I don't think cold turkey works. Is like I said, like with any drug addiction, behavioral addiction. Okay, but here in this case, you're talking literally drug, a chemical going inside of you. I would think cold turkey would be very difficult.
Just nothing has worked. And especially since we now have a family, I really thought that would help out in getting him to quit, but it hasn't.
That's, people who think that having a family solves your problem. No, it doesn't. All it does is accentuate it. It's like people who have the save the marriage baby. Our relationship's on the rocks, we'll have a baby. And I'll be totally honest, I think that happens more than people would like to admit. I mean, who's going to go tell their kid, hey, by the way, you were the save the relationship baby, because that's the pressure we put on you. Okay. Where one person really, really wants the relationship, maybe the other one doesn't. The one decides, hey, if we can just have a child, that will bring him around. And I'm only speaking from that angle because that's the angle of the call. Okay. So here we have a woman, another of the millions of women who thinks that she can change a man. What have I said prior? What have I said? At least at 56, I know one thing. One, I'm not going to change a man. And two, I don't want to waste my time trying to change him. All right. Whereas you've still got these women who think, well, if I just have a baby, that'll change him. If I just simply try to help him with his budget, he'll become more fiscally responsible. If I just show him the error of the ways, he'll buy the less expensive vehicle. Nah, you got to realize you're dealing with an adult, and I've said it before, folks, it's not romantic. It is not romantic being with somebody that you have to baby them through life. You want a partner. You don't want to be a babysitter. And to me, it just kills romance when it's like, okay, so now I have to babysit your behavior. I have to monitor. I'm not saying you can't, help someone through a rough situation. I get that. I am all there for that. All right. But when it becomes, we have to sit down, we have to have a family meeting because your behavior is hurting us. Okay. Your drug addiction. That's what this is. It's a drug addiction. 2, 3 cans. I don't even know how much tobacco is, but I just shudder at the thought.
So why did the patches not work? If it's giving him the same, unless the patches can't possibly give what 3 cans a day is giving him.
Yeah.
Is that the god awful stuff that makes you look like this? I think it does that, which is the most unattractive. Let me tell you something. There is nothing more disgusting to me than a guy that has all that tobacco stuff down in his cheeks. Oh my God, God help me. I'm sorry, but I make no apologies for saying it is one of the most unattractive things I think I've ever seen. Okay, at least on a person. It is just, it's hideous. It's absolutely hideous. And it gets down inside your gums, and it just gives you, if I'm correct, it can give you jaw cancer, all of that stuff. And if he is doing 3 cans of that a day, yeah, there's no patch that's going to make up for that. It's just nasty.
I think it all boils down to, deep down, he really doesn't want to quit.
I was thinking the same thing. I was thinking the exact same thing. If he's not at a spot where he's ready to quit, he really doesn't want to quit, guess what? The power of the mind to self-talk you into not quitting, into overriding, into overcoming anything that's given to you, the power of the mind will win over any drug. Let me repeat that. The power of the mind will win over any drug. Okay? And it's my personal experience, and we're not going to get into that tonight. All right? But if he really doesn't want to quit, he's taking it with the attitude, that's not going to work. And his mind makes sure it doesn't work. Like I said, I ain't going to get into that tonight. That's like for a book later, not tonight.
No, he likes it.
All right.
Yeah, and I just can't really find anything that gives him that push to
Do you know if
make that change.
Is it relaxing to him? What is the benefit?
How can it possibly be relaxing walking around looking like this all day? I mean, how can that possibly be relaxing? I mean, I'm sure it is, but damn if it isn't ugly.
Is it a buzz that chills him out? What's going on?
Probably does.
Well, he does have ADD.
Oh, great. Now we got ADD combined with 3 cans of tobacco. I bet the guy can't sleep.
So I think it just chills him out, but also it's become such a habit.
And he has to take more and more of it to make it work. Because like with any addiction, okay, behavioral addiction, okay, behavioral addiction, drug addiction, you have to fuel it with more of whatever that addictive behavior is to equal the same high that you used to get off of just a little dose.
And I think it's just that buzz maybe.
Yeah.
It's not that buzz maybe. It is. It is the buzz. And I wouldn't even say it's so much the buzz. It's how the drug makes them feel psychologically. Because when I think of a buzz, I think of something like alcohol. Okay. It gives you a little bit of a buzz. I don't drink alcohol. I don't drink half a cup of alcohol a year. I just don't drink. Okay. I might down a third of a wine cooler, and a bottle of a wine cooler usually takes me about 3 days. And if you don't believe me, talk to anyone who knows me. I just don't drink alcohol. But I think it's not a buzz so much as he's in a better frame of mind because his mind has been so messed up from the drugs. It's like the drugs mess up your mind, so you have to take more of the drugs to feel like you've got your mind, but it's messing up your mind. I'll be really honest. I think she's in a very hopeless situation. I really do.
Well, and I wonder if there's not something else below the surface, because what doctors are trying to treat, they can't treat. Feels like this is something in his soul, in his heart. Yes.
And that's what I mean. The power of the mind will overcome any drug. This is, not really the mood for a heavy topic this evening, so I'm going to try to kind of stay away from it, okay? But it's not going to matter what they give him medicinally to try to overcome his behavior. His behavior addiction issue. All right. Until he's ready to face it, they can throw everything at him. And it is not going to work. And I guarantee you that from personal experience.
That's what I think.
Mm-hmm.
Is that true?
No, I agree with you.
What does he do for work?
I agree. He is an HVAC technician.
Yeah.
Does he like his job?
Oh, yes, very much so.
Yeah. This is deeper than this. This is deeper. So here's the deal. We got to get that part figured out, or any financial advice or any conversational or communication advice we give you is largely going to fall on deaf ears.
And there's something else I hope they discuss this with her. She needs to find out. She needs to have a soul-to-soul talk with herself. Does she want to stay in this marriage? Is this a battle she wants to fight? You know, the older I get, the fewer battles I want to fight. Now, that's not to say, I won't deal with issues and stuff. Surely, absolutely I will. And, I will defend my mate with my life. Okay, literally. I'll defend my mate with my life. Okay. But I still have to pick and choose who do I want to battle that with. It's kind of like this, okay? I make really good cakes, all right? I really do. I make really good cakes. I am willing to consume the calories that it takes to make my cakes. I am willing to consume them, okay? And I'm willing to work it off at the gym and all of that. But then there are other, desserts that I'm given. And, well, they might be tasty and, they may be good. I don't necessarily want to spend my daily allotment. I don't count calories, okay? But so to speak, okay? I don't want to spend my calorie allotment and time at the gym to burn that off, okay? I'd rather spend it burning off the stuff that I know I really, really will enjoy. She may have to decide, as his wife, how much does she want to fight for? And it sounds like she's been battling this for a while and she hasn't seen changes. And guess what? She's not going to see changes. She's not going to see changes until he's ready to change. She's not understanding just how far she is to his mental process. I'm trying to explain this because I understand exactly. I was a shopaholic, so he takes nicotine and drugs, but I get where he's at. She may be his wife, Okay. But she is, as far as his brain is concerned, at least when I was in a relationship with my shopping addiction, my boyfriend at the time, so you are so far removed from my addiction, you don't know how far away you are. You think you're making an impact on me by either nagging me, by trying to get me onto different medications, by having me see doctors. You think you're doing something to me to help me, and yeah, you want to help them, but in reality, my mind is so far gone. It's probably a good way of putting it. My mind is so far gone, at least at that moment in time, that place. Okay. My mind is so far gone that you, as the caring partner, you don't realize you're spinning your wheels. You're not getting anywhere, and you're not going to get anywhere. And this is why you need to really decide whether or not you want to stay. I will link, if I can remember, if I can find it. It's kind of an emotional video, so if you're not in the mood for a heavy topic, probably don't want to watch it. Okay, it might even be triggering for those that have dealt with shopping addiction. And I may not look for the video tonight. It was one of the very first videos I did when I became a video reaction channel. I would say was probably in like the first 10 videos. Okay, it was very, very shortly after I became a reaction channel in September, and I might have to go look it up. But it dealt with a wife, I believe it was, and a spending addiction. She, as the caring spouse, doesn't understand that her actions, her good intentions, they're not going to be what heals him. They're not. Their actions that she's going through, and she wants it so much to heal him. She wants it to be, okay, this is the drug. This is the church pastor that we needed to speak to. This was the person in your family that we needed to contact. This was, this was the job change you needed. It's none of that. It's all up in here. And as the caring spouse, she doesn't realize that it's not about her and her actions to try to help him. It's about him changing his frame of mind to come and realize that he actually has the power to change himself, that he actually has the power to overcome his addiction. God, I hope that all made sense, especially this late at night. I get what she's trying to do. As someone who is a shopping addict, I get and I respect what she's trying to do. And it's why I say most sincerely, she has to decide, just as if she were with a gambleaholic, a shopaholic, a drug addict. In this case, it is a drug, right? It's a drug. She needs to decide. I think I said an alcoholic, okay? Also, she needs to decide how much she wants to lose before she decides to call this relationship done. She said they've been battling this a couple of years. That could be, or at least she said a few years. I don't quite remember. Let's just say they've been battling it 2 years. Okay. That is $24,000, and that's only in 12 months. Maybe they've been battling it longer. What she doesn't realize as the spouse is she doesn't realize the change that she wants to see in him is not going to come at her direction. It's going to come at his direction. And it's going to come in his time. And that timeline may not match what she desires. And even worse yet, what happens if that timeline never comes? He is going to take her down financially. See, I really don't even need to watch this video. I know where it's going. He's going to take her down financially. She knows it. It's why she's calling in. She's seeing it. She's experiencing it. And she's going to have to decide how much is she willing to lose in sleepless nights, in the arguments. How much is she going to lose financially before she says, I'm done? I'll be really honest. If she's been battling this for a couple years and I were her best friend and I've gone through the things that I've gone through, I would tell her to give it up. Because the change that she needs him to do for them to be successful as a couple, he is not in the mind frame to do it. And he clearly has not been in the mind frame to do it for a long time. And she will have to most likely sacrifice too much of herself until she doesn't even recognize herself. And much like, a whirlpool, it just keeps spinning and spinning. Eventually it will sink her too. His behavior, his negative behaviors, his addiction will sink her emotionally, physically, financially.
Because he's defensive now. However, I do think there's a money piece to it, but I think it has to be whatever's going on that is requiring you to medicate yourself this way is going to break us.
I told you, I do not have to watch this episode to tell you what's happening. I think that's one of the hardest, probably one of the most difficult things about recovering from an addiction and OCD behavior. It's like you can see, you recognize it in other situations. Someone who's been an alcoholic recognizes an alcoholic. Someone who's been an impulsive shopping addict recognizes another impulsive shopping addict. We see the signs. Okay, we see the signs. Same thing with any other sort of addiction, OCD type behavior. And I think one of the most frustrating things about the ability to see the signs is we also see all the potholes. We see everything that can take a person down. And the hardest part, at least coming out on the other side of it, okay? Because I'm now on the other side and I intend to keep myself there. I think one of the hardest things about it is we want to scream to the party that's trying to help. I like to refer to it as the innocent party, so to speak. We want to scream and shout and say, what you're doing isn't working. I know why you want to do it. I understand what you're hoping to get out of it, but you're not going to get it. Very few people are going to get it. And if they're going to get it, do they have the financial resources? Do they have the emotional wherewithal to take their partner through this god-awful, pothole-ridden journey that may just be starting? Do they want to put them through that? And she says here they have a family, so I'm assuming they have kids. She mistakenly thought that bringing in, I'm assuming they have children because she said we have a family. She mistakenly thought that bringing in a child into this mix was going to make things better, which gives you an idea as to how long this has been going on, to the point that she realized she couldn't solve it. And she's correct. She can't. Okay. But it's something, as a former OCD addict, so to speak, myself, it's like, well, I could have told you that in a phone call. Okay. And that's frustrating because you want to shout out to the innocent party and go, stop what you're doing. It's not going to work. None of this is going to work because it's all in their mind. And that's why it doesn't work. And she's known for a long time. And so it was kind of a hope, a wing, and a prayer that if I just bring in a child, he will come around. But they're missing the mark. It's in the addict's mind. It's kind of like that's where unlocking the box comes. You have to get into their mind and you have to unlock it. But the only person with the key is the person that owns the mind, right? Nobody else can open that mind up but the addict themselves.
That's the depth of this. And so we've got to get to that. And then the financial piece will take care of itself because he doesn't have to medicate.
That is absolutely correct. That is absolutely correct. I believe this is Ken. George is on the right. Ken is on the left. Okay. I believe this is Ken. Ken is absolutely right. Because that was the case with me. But let me tell you how long that journey was. It was over 10 years. Who wants to stick around with someone who has an addiction like I had for a decade? See, you'll watch TV shows, and TV shows make it sound like addictions are so easy. They bring on some Hollywood, specialist who, takes the person through their addiction. And in, a 40-minute episode, in a 1-hour TV show with 20 minutes of commercials for a total of 40 minutes, if you're lucky. And the addiction is miraculously solved. No, that's not the way it works. No, not at all. And in my case, it was 10 years. 10 years. I wouldn't wish on anyone to go through what I went through in my 20s. I wouldn't wish it on an enemy to go through it. Not at all. And into my early 30s. But until they solve the problem of the mind, you're not going to solve the money. But I will give you a piece of good news. So it's not all doom and gloom. When you solve the problem of the mind, when you solve the mental health, let's just face it, folks, it is mental health. I wish that word, mental health, those two words would have been used when I was in my 20s instead of it being so hidden. Okay? Because that's what it was all about. I was one big mental health F up. Huge. Big time. And I'll probably never even get to discussing all of it on this channel because there are some things I wish to keep private. But man, when we talk about mental health, until the mind is fixed, you cannot fix the finances. So the question becomes, does she wish to take herself down that? And with children, how much does she want to put them through? Because the older they get, they're going to start watching mom and how dad acts, and they're going to think that that's normal. And it's not. That's not a normal, healthy relationship.
Yes.
So in the meantime, since we can't solve that, George, I want to know what George thinks. I think this is so I'm going to come back to this in a second. I want to come back to the conversation of what she might say. But I want to bring in the financial. In this case, giving her advice. This is such a sensitive issue that's got a lot of depth to it. Could she get him on board with, all right, you got to go get a side hustle to the tune of $1,000 a month to cover this medication?
No. I don't even need to hear the rest of it. I'm going to give you my personal experience. No. That would be like telling me, okay, Carrie, you're a shopping addict, so you're spending $1,000 a month that you don't have on clothes. Go get a side hustle. I looked at him and said, really? Remember, that's showing responsibility. People with severe addictions, people who are mentally unwell, they're not thinking logical. A logical person who really doesn't have an OCD issue, but they just like their clothes, because it's not the same for everybody. There are people who can spend $1,000 a month. They just like their clothes. And if their spouse says, look, honey, I know you really like shopping. You think maybe you could pick up a little PT job, part-time job? All right. And, pitch in a little, oh, sure, no problem. They go pick up, another $600 a month job, and they use it towards their shopping stuff, whatever. As a matter of fact, when I was finally mentally healthy, in my early 30s, that's exactly what I did. Because you see, a mentally healthy mind can do that. And I actually did that. I worked at a retail mall. I won't say which one, here in Tampa. And I loved it. I did it just so I could buy the clothes. But I was mentally healthy. I was coming out of the illness that I had. And I was entering the world of mental health, being mentally healthy. And it was great. It's like, hey, you know what? I really do like shopping for these clothes. So I could just go ahead and take on a part-time job and go shop for it. And I did. And it was all controlled and it was all fine. But what did it take? It took my mind being healthy. That's what it took. So for Ken to say, well, telling this guy who's got an addiction, basically, could you go work for an extra $1,000 a month? Nah, he's not going to. He's not going to. because again, you're dealing with an unwell mind. If you're dealing with a well mind, he wouldn't be buying 3 packs a day, probably killing his jawline, which is more medical bills down the road. So no, you can't tell them that any more than you could tell a gambleaholic, hey, you know what? You're gambling $1,500 a month. You think you could pick up a part-time job to do that gambling? I mean, I understand Ken's intention and it's well-meaning, but it only works in my experience, my personal experience. It only works in a healthy mind. A healthy mind can go, okay, you know what? I like to spend, $500 a month, doing whatever. I'm going to go pick up a part-time job, and that's how I'm going to support it. That's a healthy mind. An unhealthy mind can't think like that. That's too logical.
I think that's a fair ask. What do you think, George?
Yeah, I mean, with addiction, it's not as simple as saying, "Hey, we're gonna cut them off."
Yeah,
and
right. It's not as simple as saying we're going to cut them off, and it's definitely not as simple as saying, "Hey, go make up the income that's costing you your addiction."
And so I still think, I'm not a medical professional, I think cold turkey is the way to go, and I think it starts with this conversation of you going, listen, this is going to deteriorate your health. I want you around to see our kids grow up. I want us to actually hit our financial goals. It's derailing us financially.
I don't think cold turkey is the way to go. Not without medical supervision. And I'll tell you why. When I was on medication, and I had what I used to call a little cocktail drug of it, okay? Been off it for about 20 years. And let me tell you, the biggest fear I had about going through a divorce over a decade ago is I was afraid I'd be back on the medication. That, believe it or not, that was the single greatest fear I had about getting divorced. It wasn't the money. Nope. It was about what happens if I have to go back on medication. And I did everything I could mentally make sure I didn't, and I did not. But you can't, in my opinion, you should not go cold turkey on medication, because I did try doing that. And when we're talking, of course, I was on some pretty strong drugs, okay? Because I had a psychiatrist and all that. I was on very, very strong drugs. I won't discuss which ones they are, okay? But I also know I could go back on them anytime I want to, but it's a great source of pride for me to have been off of them for 20 years. But I will tell you that going cold turkey for me was disastrous on prescription medication. Now, maybe it's a little different when it's nicotine. I don't know. But I can tell you prescription medication was disastrous, and that wound me up in emergency. So we'll just leave it at that. Be very careful if you're going cold turkey.
For you to be spending this way. And by the way, gas stations are one of the worst places to buy all of this stuff. It's the highest cost.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to do this crap, at least get a bargain somewhere. Walmart, all right?
And so if he's going to do this, he's got to be smarter about it than just impulsively stopping by the gas station every 4 hours.
That's kind of messed up if you think about it, okay? It's like, well, good Lord. If you're going to be an alcoholic, for God's sakes, do you have to go to the bar inside of Nordstrom's? Because Nordstrom's used to have a restaurant, and I'm sure like a nice restaurant. I'm sure they've long gotten rid of them. But when I was growing up, Nordstrom's had a really nice restaurant side of it. It's like, if we really have to go get drunk at Nordstrom's, can we go get drunk at the gas station instead? That would be cheaper.
And so he's got to find a way to curb the spending, even if it's, hey, we're cutting back. No more food, snacks, drinks, all of this stuff.
Yeah.
It's not going to work. It's just not going to work. You see, you're trying to put logic into an illogical mind. That's what that's what they're trying to do. And I can tell you, you could have come up to me with all the logic in the world. Carrie, you're spending too much money. You're always spending your paychecks before it's even hit your bank. This is why you have to go running like a little, rat from one bank to the other. All right. I even used to have multiple banks. Yeah. Those of us who have been broke before, we've had multiple banks because you can try to kind of bounce banks from one check from one bank to another bank. Okay. It's exhausting. Being broke is exhausting. Okay. Trying to manipulate money is exhausting. But you could have come to me with all the logic in the world, but again, without the mind, it didn't mean anything. So what I'm hearing them do, and people who have been in my situation, and people who understand addictive behavior, people who are logical are trying to use logic and reason to deal with an illogical person. Doesn't work. Nobody was going to come up to me and say, okay, Carrie, I see that you are at the mall every day after work, and you seem to be there for about 10 hours on Saturdays and Sundays. Do you think you could cut it down? No, I could not. Did I want to? Yes. Was I aware it was hurting me? Not for the longest time. And then when I was aware, I was so into it, I couldn't admit it.
I think that's the key. You have to say, babe, I'm worried about this.
And you're going to...
Nah, that's not the key. The key that will unlock his mind is for him to decide. It's for him to decide that he's ready for a change. And he's ready to fight for it. And that, as I said earlier, it may not come in the time frame that she wishes.
You're going to have to get more involved in the finances. Do you guys have combined bank accounts?
No, and because of that reason, yeah. And I know that's something I've struggled with.
Keep those finances separate. Protect it, especially with kids. When you are dealing with somebody who has an addiction to the type that it affects the finances, keep those finances separate. This is what makes the relationship so unromantic. And I'm not, I'm not a romanticist going, oh, well, we should all be about flowers and pretty stuff every day. No, I trust me, I've been married, all right? I'm 56, I've been through enough to know. But when I say keep a relationship from being romantic, what I'm saying is it keeps a relationship from feeling like you actually have a partner. And instead you feel like you're babysitting somebody, okay? That's what I mean by romantic, okay? I just want to make sure people understand exactly what I mean by that. Instead of feeling like, okay, we are in this together and I have a partner, you got my back, I got your back, we're sitting here, and it's when one person has to act like the adult in the room that they're dealing with a child. She is the adult in the room. The person without the spending addiction or the compulsive behavior, whatever, that the person without it, that's the adult in the room trying to negotiate with their partner. How are you going to keep from sinking us so we don't lose our house, we don't lose our car, the kids aren't afraid to come home? All right. That's what I mean by it's just so unromantic.
I've taken control somewhat of his bank account, just so that I can monitor his spending. And
isn't that what parents do with children? Take control of their stuff to monitor it. That's what I mean by unromantic. I'm not talking in terms of the physical sense of it. It's about the mind of it. To me, that's just that is why addictions can be relationship. One of the reasons, okay, it can kill a relationship because the innocent party no longer feels like they actually have a partner. And to an extent, they don't. They don't have a partner. All right, we're going to take a technical break because I just cleared this. So we're going to hold on here while I take a technical break and get it back. I've done this before. Okay, I think I've got us back on track. All right, here we go.
I think that's the key. You have to say, babe, I'm worried about this.
And you're going to have to get more involved in the finances. Do you guys have combined bank accounts?
No, and because of that reason, yeah. And I know that's something I've struggled with. I've taken control somewhat of his bank account, just so that I can monitor his spending. And every month it's the same thing when we sit down and have that talk. Like, hey, you're spending way too much. And it's just, yeah,
Is this on a credit card, a debit card?
Debit.
Okay. And so he's got the money, but it's his income, and he's just spending down his account every month doing this.
Yes, and we've even tried with having him send me like a certain percentage of his paychecks that I would then put into savings or would go towards bills for that month.
Is she a housewife? Is she a housewife? That's very concerning if she is. Not that she's a housewife. That's not the concerning part in and of itself. But if she's a housewife with a guy who's got a major spending addiction, and he supposedly gives her an allowance towards the household stuff, it's concerning because she may feel trapped in the relationship and unable to get out, which, in all honesty, leads me to an entire video, which we will not even touch on this evening. This would be like 2 hours, and I just don't want to create a 2-hour video. But if she's a housewife, at least she's sounding like she's an SAHM, stay-at-home mom. That's what she sounds like. This may make her, if this is the case, and it's what I'm kind of sensing now, if this is the case, she may feel really trapped. This is why bringing kids in to try to save the marriage doesn't work. Okay? Because they're only going to add stress. And if the marriage is already not great, it can make one person feel trapped, at least until, the kids get older.
You need to tell him, listen, I didn't sign up to be married to a child that I have to monitor and babysit.
All right. See, I told you guys. I've told you. I didn't have to watch this video. And those of you, hold on, I'm always rearranging my stool here. I sit on a stool because it forces me to sit up straight. I've told you, I don't have to watch the video. I know what this is about.
You need to care about this family more than you care about your chewing tobacco habit.
See, but here again is the problem. It'd be like someone saying to me, gee, Carrie, you need to care more about, your boyfriend, because I had a boyfriend at the time. You need to care more about your boyfriend or your friendships than you do your shopping addiction. It's not that I didn't want to care. Okay? It's not that I didn't want to care. I wasn't in a mind frame to give a rip. I just wasn't. I was not in a mind frame to be able to care at the level that a healthy mind would care. I was not in a position to care at a level where my decisions, my actions seemed rational. They were highly irrational. My behavior was highly irrational. That's why I've told you, I wouldn't wish a best friend to go through what I went through in my 20s and early 30s. Wouldn't wish it on anybody.
And I need you to show me that
conversation, yeah.
And
they've had all these conversations, and she said she's been doing it for a while. They brought in a kid she brought in a kid to try to help. Okay? If she's a stay-at-home mom, this is really, what's the word? I'm concerned for her if she's a stay-at-home mom. And especially depending upon how long she's been a stay-at-home mom. She may very well feel like she can't get out. Like I said, that leads to a whole new video about, the feelings that I have about being a stay-at-home parent, which is fine. But do you have the skills and the resources that if you are with somebody who is going to sink you financially, can you save yourself? Or are you totally dependent on them? And if she is totally dependent on him for her survival, that's a very vulnerable position for her to be in.
And if you guys need to go to counseling to deal with the marital issues beneath this, I think if you don't, it's going to cause more resentment, and this marriage isn't going to survive this.
There we go. I don't give myself snaps during calls like this because it just seems highly tacky. But yeah. And I said it earlier. This is why the person without the addiction has to decide how much crap can you put up with? How much can you take? How many sleepless nights are you willing to have? How many knots in your stomach? You know what I'm talking about? Those knots that you get in your stomach. Like all hell is just falling apart and it keeps falling apart. It doesn't get better no matter what you do. How many of those are you going to go through? You have to decide. Only you can decide. But I would tell you, just from what I've heard here in this conversation, you could not get me to stay. I would be running in the other direction. And the fact that I really know what's in front of her, that I really understand the mind frame that he's in. Okay, we may not have the same addiction, but you don't have to have similar addictions to understand how an addiction F's with your mind. Okay, you just have to have an addiction. You have to have it long enough to destroy you, and then it starts to extend outward and destroy everything else, until pretty soon everybody around you wants to be gone, and all you're left is you, and you've fallen apart. I remember watching a news story years back. In my 20s, I was a famous, I believe it was Los Angeles news anchor. Now, this is when in the 80s. Okay, I was in my early 20s and stuff. And it turned out that this news anchor in Los Angeles had, I guess, a huge alcohol addiction. I mean, and we're talking, he was like, I believe probably not a multi, but probably, $1 million a year plus anchor. I mean, you're talking in the 80s. Okay. So this was a coveted job. Well, I guess he wound up losing his job. And I saw an article on him because I used to watch him on the news all the time. I do not recall his name. And he was just struggling one day at a time to make it through an Alcoholics Anonymous and alcoholic recovery program. And I'm positive he wound up divorced, and just this is what addiction does to you. It destroys you. And as the innocent party, you have to decide, do you want to put yourself through that destruction? Because I guarantee it gets worse before it gets better. And then you've got kids on top of it. Do you want to put them through that? Do you want them to see that? One of the greatest things is I didn't have children. And a little known secret, part of the reason I chose to never have kids is I was at least sane enough to know that I would have been one effed up parent if I had. And I was in no position to try and raise a child. And, that's one of the best decisions I ever made in my life to help me and to help society. Okay? Because I at least knew enough to know that I shouldn't be raising children. And I definitely knew enough to know that you don't bring kids into a relationship, either through birth or through adoption, because you think that's going to save the relationship. It won't.
George is right.
Because this is going to just compound every month for the next, another 3 years of this?
Well, you're not going to solve it. You can't solve it. He has to understand how afraid you are, how exhausted you are.
And how it's affecting you guys.
How it's affecting.
He knows this. And I've said this before with other addictions, okay? They know this, but they're not in a frame of mind where they care enough to be able to stop it. And part of the reason they can't stop it is because their mind is so effed up right now that they don't even know how to crawl their way out of it. And until he hits what he believes, not what we believe, until he hits what he believes is rock bottom, he's not going to crawl his way out of it. And to her, to a sane person, to a person with their mental faculties, he's long hit rock bottom. He's got a child. I suspect now at this point, I sincerely suspect she's a stay-at-home mom. Okay, at least the way she was talking about it. Okay, about he gives me a certain percentage of his income towards the bills. Now, I could be wrong, but stay-at-home mom or not. Okay, all right. It's not that he doesn't care. It's that the mental state that he's in is shutting off those emotions. It's cutting them off, and it's part of the survival technique. It's a survival skill. Yeah, how do I know, right? That's how I know. Yeah, I've been through it. So when you go to someone who has an addiction and you say to them, but you're hurting this person, you're hurting that person, you're spending your addiction, you're shopping, you're drinking, you're whatever the addiction is, you're gambling. And I'm sure there are other addictions out there I know that are little discussed, okay? It's hurting your family, but that's why it's called an addiction. Because it overrides everything else until he feels like he has hit rock bottom. Not tell you as the innocent party, spouse, caring parent, caring girlfriend, boyfriend, caring husband, wife. Not tell you think what is rock bottom, but until the person with the addiction believes they've hit rock bottom. That is the point where change may come. Note, I didn't say will come. I said that is where change may come. How many people die from drug overdose? Okay, how many people die from drug overdose? Right? It doesn't mean just because they've hit rock bottom, they're going to change.
Affecting your marriage and what that's going to have an impact on the rest of his life. And then he's going to have to get to the bottom of what's going on with him, which is causing the medication of the tobacco. And then you guys have to fix what's already been in some ways bruised and broken with you two.
And I've said it before, and it's worth repeating. What can be very hard for the innocent party to realize is it may require the end of the relationship for the individual with the issue, for the individual with the addiction. Okay, that's the person I'm talking about. It may require the end of the relationship for the person with the addiction to heal themselves. And when they do come around, if the marriage is even still intact, the person with the addiction may come to realize that you're actually the wrong partner for them. Trust me, it hurts me to say it. I don't know if this addiction was going on before their marriage, okay? Or if this was something that's happened after their marriage. But one of the things that I was told by my psychiatrist when I was in my 20s is she said to me, and we don't know how old this woman is, we don't know how old her husband is, but I remember she very clearly said to me, Carrie, you're so lucky. You're basically going through all this hell now in your 20s. And I was like, why am I so lucky? She goes, because it could come out in your 40s, 50s, 60s. And she goes, and if it did come out later, she goes, it can destroy everything you have around it. I've never forgotten that. I've never forgotten her telling me that. And this is why when I say to you that there is the possibility that for him to fix his issue, it may require a divorce. It may, because nobody wants to hear that. But it may be what it requires for him to find himself. And when he does find himself, the poor spouse that he dragged through the muck with him, you can't blame that spouse for going, I'm not going back. I put up with your drinking, smoking, whatever, okay? I put up with your addiction. I lost tens of thousands. He is going to cost her tens and tens and tens of thousands of dollars. He's not going to cost her a few hundred. He's not going to cost her $12,000 a year. No, you just keep adding this up. He's going to cost her in the tens of thousands of dollars. That's a lot of money. And she may be better off seeking a divorce and getting a mandatory judgment because they have a child, okay? A minor child, once they become older children, not as big of a deal, clearly, okay? But she may, to protect her child, and that's what I'd be focusing on at this point, she would probably be better off getting a divorce and having a court order a certain amount of money has to be automatically wage garnished and sent to her and the child for support. Then trying to stay with him, exposing the child to this, exposing herself to this, going home in knots and stomach twists every freaking night, having constant arguments about the addiction, an argument that she cannot and will not win. The only person who could win that argument is the person with the addiction. I think she was, if I were in charge, okay, I would tell her divorce. The court will order by wage garnishment a certain amount of money to go to her and the child for support and protect herself that way. That's what I would do.
All of that has to happen, or this spending isn't going to stop.
Yeah, even if we go, hey, tell them to get it in bulk at Walmart. Well, that might be a Band-Aid. That might save us $200 a month, but it doesn't solve the real problem here.
And let me tell you something else to think about. The long-term medical costs of this addiction. Is she ready to deal with that too? I mean, we're talking major drug addiction, future cancer bills. Okay? Future surgeries that could have been avoided. You know, I think about, just my skin, and it makes my skin crawl. Thinking I'm going to stuff things down in my cheeks and let it sit there. And from what I know, and I don't know much because I don't smoke. All right. I've heard that the tobacco that you stuff down, I guess, inside your mouth, that's worse than the cigarette stuff that people smoke, because it's sitting there and it's basically just mixing with your saliva, and it's never getting released. It just sits there. She has to think about her future finances, not just in the short run in terms of, how am I going to raise the child? How am I going to start saving for retirement? But future finances on what the hell is this going to cost medically down the road? There's going to be a price to pay for this, a big financial price. Okay. He's going to have medical issues. He's smoking all this crap, or not smoking it, but chewing it. Okay. Tobacco, I guess. All right. He's spitting and chewing. It's just that just makes my skin crawl, but we'll put that aside. Okay. She's got to ask herself, is this worth it? Does she want to stick around to help him out in his old age when he's riddled with cancer of the jaw and the tongue? And does she want to help support that medical bill? Or is that going to build a certain amount of, what is it? When you build up, sometimes when I'm filming and stuff, it gets hard. When you're filming, it can be hard to remember every word, not vindictive, but is she going to feel, what is the word? I can't think of it. She's going to dislike him because she feels like she's sacrificing all this to get nothing in return. Is this going to give her some sense of regret for having stayed with him? He's going to cost her dearly. And that's one of the things that I can tell you, being 56 and getting older, one of the things that I look at, it's not the final determining factor, of course, is, do you take care of yourself? What have you done to your body over the years that could destroy it? Okay. Now that doesn't mean, I don't deal with someone with medical issues. We do what we got to do. And I mean, we deal with it, but it is something to look at for this woman. How much, a person who's smoking 3 packs a day. Oh my God. 3 packs a day, 365 days in a year. Holy cow. You want to be with someone who treats their body to 1,000+ cans of nicotine every single year? Just a thought.